I have always wanted to be a comic book artist. That's the only thing I ever saw myself being able to do.
I met Ken in middle school, so 7th and 8th grade. I was probably about 13 or 14 years old. As long as I've known Ken, he's drawn comics.
Pretty much how I learned to draw was through comic books, and that was pretty much all I ever did as a kid. I did a webcomic for a while called My Nemesis, which was about, it was loosely autobiographical, and it had like 250 strips, something like that, and that was fun for a while. That was cool.
He started coming into the comic shop that I used to work at, but he'd keep coming in, and then he would just idle around for, it seemed like hours. And eventually I said, I gotta talk to this guy, he's creeping me out.
One day I got a call, and it was Ken Krekeler introducing himself, I believe. I think he had approached Jesse Rubenfeld, who Into the Dust 1 and 2 I had distributed through Diamond.
I did go to art school. I went to the College for Creative Studies in Detroit. I graduated in May of 2009. I don't know why anyone doesn't go to art school. It's the easiest school on earth. You know you don't have to take a math class? That's why I went to art school, because you don't have to take a math class. I am a huge Ayn Rand fan.
I don't know if I'd call myself a hardcore objectivist, but I do like the work of Ayn Rand.
She was a really good writer, and she had some really good ideas.
She's a fantastic writer and a brilliant artist. Somebody who has that kind of, you know, the objectivist leaning perspective. I mean, it kind of comes out when you sweat.
He said he was doing the Colodin Project, and I thought to myself, I go, that sounds really familiar, because in that month it was being offered in the Diamond catalog. But seeing Ken after kind of clicked the two together, so I was like, oh great, he's a local, I had no idea.
I started writing Colodin Project when I was 14. For a long time in high school it was called Worlds, but that didn't test well with audiences. So I found that anything with the word project in the title became cooler, and so I called it the Colodin Project. It was a happier story back then. It became very, very dark as time went on.
The style of Colodin Project is fairly realistic, fairly dark. His colors change drastically between the real world and his fantasy world. Not exactly for kids, I wouldn't say.
This is Quinn Valwright, Tyler Quintus Valwright, our main character of Colodin Project. Quinn Valwright, when I was a kid, was like me, was my fantasy world. It was like who I wanted to be, but that changed quite drastically, and when it finally became Colodin Project, Quinn Valwright was this angry thief from this like fucked up steampunk world, and he gets lost here.
Quinn's kind of, he has sociopathic tendencies. If you read, as the issues go on, you kind of find out he has more of a dark side, and he's not really an innocent teenager.
Is it supernatural? Is it philosophical? Is it superhero? Is it film noir murder mystery? What is it? I don't know. It seems to fill a lot of niches. That's what's interesting about the Colodin Project.
I told the whole first act of the story through the eyes of the private detective, which only really touches on certain key elements of what's really going on. So that's his device. He's our everyman. Erica was born the same time Quinn was born, like in the story, back when it was called Worlds. She kind of represents one of the only people in the story that's not jaded. Erica actually tries to help people, and she just keeps getting screwed.
I do identify with the character of Erica. She's a little bit more of a risk taker than I am.
My process at this point is very refined, so I know exactly what to do now. I know exactly what kind of photographs I need, and as long as I get those initial materials, the rest is smooth sailing. So every shot in the book is a shot in real life. So not only is there a shot per panel in the book, but there's like 4 or 5 shots per panel in the book. So altogether, it's a vast amount of photographs.
Ken's artistic process, I think, is a lot similar to actually how I work. I know he is meticulous about taking photo reference shots. He has a cast of actors.
All my artwork is digital artwork. I use photographs and Photoshop. I used to use illustration boards and India ink and pens and all that, but all that's just a waste of time at this point. Everything's so much faster in Photoshop.
The hardest part of modeling for me is I'm generally shy, and very often we shoot scenes in public places where there's a lot of people, and you look very silly. We did a kissing scene, and Ken was actually more embarrassed by that scene than I was.
I have been extremely lucky with my models. Most of the time, they've been like amazing performances.
The acrobatics are pretty difficult for that character. Jumping up and down on the trampoline for hours at a time, it gets pretty strenuous.
Especially like one like this where you have to like lay your head down and you have to take like different shots from different places. After a while it kind of hurts your neck.
It's all just done with, non-professional lighting in basements or rooms. It changes into something that looks really good. It's a well done comic visually.
My favorite part of modeling is the end result. The disconnect between my real life and the character, and just being able to let go and see it differently.
It looks very noirish. It looks, Frank Miller-ish.
Frank Miller, Tim Sale, Alex Maleev, these are comic book artists that, just really develop their own unique style. They use a lot of ink work. And there are a lot of tricks that I learned from them. Little tricks to drop in backgrounds that look good, but are still really very fast. As an independent publisher, your customers are stores. Your customers are comic book retailers. The only way to sell to the retailers is to get into a particular catalog called Diamond Previews. It's the same catalog that carries Spider-Man, X-Men, Superman, Batman, all the big names, all the little names, they're all in this one catalog. I got into the catalog through a guy named John Hett, who had never met me and didn't know anything about me.
I knew someone, my publisher, who was pretty much a publisher in name only, who had his foot in the door at Diamond.
He explained the process to me, and it was really, really helpful. I couldn't have done it without him.
I have a distribution contract through Diamond. They are the ones that get your Marvel, DC, Image out to every comic book store or anybody who wants to sell comics. The Previews catalog is what it is. It's a huge catalog. It's like an encyclopedia of everything that's coming out. Comic book store owners get it. They plow through it. They determine what they're going to order for their stores.
My perspective as a retailer is a lot of info. You've got to be able to sift through what works for your store, and it's every month.
It's really a crapshoot. He's all of a sudden, boom, my company, Tool Publications, a picture of the Colodin Project, an unknown artist, an unknown title. There's no prerequisite for me to distribute a book through Diamond for an artist, other than they give me $1 if the book gets picked up. That's the whole cost, and they give me $1 if the movie rights. So Ken actually owes me $1 because some Hollywood weasel contacted him.
For a couple years, I've worked with Ken at the Comic-Cons as a booth babe, but also helping to distribute the comic.
As a publisher, I started going to the Motor City Comic Con to promote my own book. They're very different from when I was a child in the 70s. They're very different than they were in the 80s, and they've become more pop culture fairs.
Last year I did, I think, 6 conventions. This year I'm only doing 2. My favorite part, and it's also my least favorite part, is interacting with fans.
I think anything you can do to self-promote an independent product it's invaluable.
I have gone to comic conventions in the past. They are extremely stressful. You have to convince them to buy this thing that you worked so hard on. I've done the Motor City Comic Con a few times. I've done the Chicago Con once. I don't think I'm going to do those anymore. I think I'm done with the comic conventions at this point. They scare me. They're scary places.
Ken contacted me a few months ago saying that he was working furiously on Volume 2. I guess I'm waiting for Ken's call to say, I guess we're ready to approach Diamond.
He sent me a couple of preview images of Volume 2, but he tends to be a little secretive with his projects, at least until he has really something concrete and fairly large to show you.
My iMac will be arriving on Monday. Once I get that bad boy, I will be back in business. There are new characters. An old friend of Quinn's from back in Colodin. We learn more about the character of Alsatia, the little girl in the wheelchair. We learn more about who she is and what she can do.
I don't even know what's going to happen in the story. So I think even for the character, the models, we're all anticipating how the story's going to unfold, and I'm going to work everything into it.
I don't know how the story of Colodin ends, and I don't want to know. Just like the readers, I like being caught up in the story, and I believe that if I knew what happened in the end, it would lose some of the magic for me.